Yes, welcome to DC Economics. Today I'm going to take you on the concept of consumer behavior. This is a very important topic that you need to know on how consumers use its income in making a best choice of consumption's band of goods and services and enable to maximize utility. So consumer behavior this is the study of analysis on how consumers make decisions about what to buy, when to buy it, and how to do so. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss the theory of consumer behavior from the cardinalist paradigm. Cardinalist paradigm is the concept from the cardinalist approach of the schools asserts that the utility can be measured and quantified. It means it is possible to express utility that an individual derives from consuming a commodity in quantitative terms. So we tend to explain it, compare on how the utility can be measured in numbers or in mathematical, in a quantitative way. So in the first part of this lecture, we are going to explain the cardinal or cardinalist approach to the theory of consumer behavior. In the second part, we are going to define the concept of utility and marginal utility. And in the third part, we are going to describe on how the demand curve is derived from the hypothesis of diminishing marginal utility. And firstly, we shall learn the consumer surplus and the paradox of value. But also finally, the lecture shall provide a critique on the cardinalist paradigms. So let's come to key objectives. So after reading this chapter, you should be able to explain the cardinal utility theory, Second, to define the marginal utility and the state the law of diminishing marginal utility. Third, to describe the consumer equilibrium condition. And fourth, to derive the demand curve from the law of diminishing marginal utility. So fifth, also you should also be capable to explain how the concept of marginal utility answers on important question of consumer surplus and paradox of value. Six, you need to enable to understand the relationship between the total utility elasticity and marginal utility. 7, to provide a critique on the cardinal utility theory. By the way, what is cardinal utility theory? This is the theory accepts that the utility or the utility that is gained from particular goods or services can be measured in numbers. So the theoretical unit of utility measurement is called the util, and if the utility is measured can be measured in this way, it should be then possible to understand the concept of utility. For example, the majority of economists believe that utility cannot be measured in cardinal approach, and that only ordinary utility to be presented in this lecture 7 in this course unit is relevant. Despite of the limitation, we can use the cardinal utility theory to explain why the individual demand curve slopes from downward from left to right. So the central of this theory are the concept of marginal utility and the hypothesis of diminishing marginal utility. So what is utility? Utility is the measure of the relative happiness or satisfaction gained from consuming different bundles of goods and services. It tends to address to show out on the gain an individual obtained after consuming a certain good and services. From the thousands of goods and services, a consumer would attempt to gain the greatest possible utility subject to the size of his or her income. So it depends on what amount of consumption an individual is made, the utility obtained can be measured. So marginal utility is defined as the extra utility derived from the consumption of one or more units of goods, while the consumption of other goods are kept constant. So the rate of marginal change of utility due to additional change of consumption. So as more and more units of commodity consumed per unit of time increases, total utility also increases. However, although the total utility increases, the marginal utility from consuming each additional unit of commodity usually decreases. So indeed, at some levels of consumption, the total utility received by individuals from consuming the commodities will reach the maximum and the marginal utility will be zero. So this is what we call the saturation point. So additional units of commodities cause the total utility to become negative because of the storage or disposal problems. So this is called the assumptions of diminishing marginal utility. This is what we refer to as assumptions of what is known as diminishing marginal utility. The table below shows the consumer total utility. We have the quantity of X, 1 up to 11. We have total utility of X, and we have the marginal utility of X. Now, from our table, as you can observe, We can obtain the marginal utility of x in the right hand side by taking the change of the total utility 2 minus total utility 1 divided by the quantity of 2 divided by the quantity of 1. So when you take out 21 minus 15 divided by 3 over 2, we obtain 5. That, as you observe, the marginal utility of x. And when we take 28 minus 21 divided by, when we take out 4 times 3, 4 minus 1 is where you obtain 6. So you obtain the marginal utility of 7, marginal utility of 8, 10 up to negative 9, negative 15, as you observe. So that is how we find out the marginal utility of x. So when you try to sketch this graphical, we can show out the total utility in the left hand side, and we have the quantity of x in the bottom, in the x-axis. So as you observe, the total and the marginal utility of saturation points occurs where marginal utility of x is equal to 0. And the marginal utility of x occurs where the individual increases consumption from the point of 7 consumption to 8 consumption, as you can observe. So the graph will be going downward, going upward to reach to the maximum and going to the end by declining. So the saturation point is where the marginal utility of x is equal to 0 and the individual increases consumption from 7 to 8 units of goods, as you can observe. So increase of total utility describe increase of marginal utility, but the marginal utility will end up declining as an individual increases more consumption of goods beyond the required level of utility. So the marginal utility, diminishing marginal utility, tends to explain also how when an individual increases consumption and total utility increases, but reach the point where the marginal utility starts to decline at the point. Now let's come to consumer equilibrium. The consumer equilibrium occurs when the ratio of the marginal utility between the different goods is equal to the respective price ratio. So this is given by this function here. Marginal utility of x is equal over price of x is equal to marginal utility of y over py, where mux is the marginal utility of commodity x, muy is the marginal utility of commodity y, price of x, px is the price of commodity x, and we have also the price of y, which is equal to price of commodity y, as you can observe. For example, now, Ms. Avijaya wishes to celebrate her birthday. She has contemplating on how many bottles of sodas, beer, and wine to buy in order to maximize her utility. Assume for simplicity that a bottle of beer costs 2 Tanzanian shillings and a bottle of soda costs 1 Tanzanian shillings and a bottle of wine costs 4 shillings. Assume further that our marginal utility figures for sodas, beers, and wines are presented in this table here. Suppose we have the table represented the beverage for consumptions for Ms. Avijaya, showing that a bottle of soda costs 1 shillings, bottle of wines costs 4 shillings, and the bottle also of wine is given in this table here below. So Mr. Avijaya we have the marginal utility of soda, that is to 10 up to 5. We have a marginal utility of beers starting from 50 to 12. We have marginal utility of wine starting from 60 to 16. We have the units of products, the first bottle, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth bottle, as you observe. Now, suppose now the question requires you, if Mr. Avijaya has 7 Tanzanian shillings at his disposal, what combination of beverage should she select in order to maximize the total utility? So if Mr. Avijaya has 7 Tanzanian shillings at his disposal combination of beverage, so if you ask what combination of beverage should she select in order to maximize their total utility? So the first step, we need to sketch the same table, but we need to identify the marginal utility respect to the price level, so as we can be capable of understanding the beverage that Mr. Avijaya should choose to maximize their total utility. For that case, we need to sketch the new table and add the position for marginal utility in respect of their price level. So in order to know what combination of beverage should Mr. Avijaya select to maximize their utility, we need first to compute the ratio of marginal utility of their corresponding prices. That is marginal utility of soda in respect of its price, marginal utility of beer in respect of its price, marginal utility of wine in respect of its price. And then we add the space for to our table, that we add the marginal utility per shillings, that is 10 up to 5, the marginal utility for beer starting from 25 to 6, and we have also the marginal utility per shilling starting from 15 up to 4. So for that case, when we take out the marginal utility of soda, that is 10 divided by 1, we obtain 10. And when we take out the marginal utility of beer, divide by the price of beer, that is 2, we obtain out 25 up to 6. And exactly when we start to the side of marginal utility of soda, when we take out the marginal utility of soda, that is 10 divided by 1, we obtain 10. The marginal utility of soda for the second bottle, that we take 9 divided by the price of it, that is 1, will give you 9. Then for the first bottle of soda, when we take out 8 divided by the price of it, that is 1, we obtain 8. The same procedure when we apply the marginal utility of beer, that is 50 divided by its price. The price level for the first bottle of soda, the first bottle of beer is 2, is equal to 25. Marginal utility of the second bottle, that is equal to 40 divided by its price, that is 2. The answer is 20. Also, the marginal utility for the third bottle of beer, that is equal to 30 divided by 2. That will give you 15, as you can observe. So you do the same up to the last 6th bottle of beer. So when it comes to wine, the same procedure as we did. We take the marginal utility of wine, that is 60, then divide by its price, that is 4 Tanzanian shillings. The answer will be equals to 15. The same applies we do for the second bottle of wine. That will be equals to, we take out 40 divided by 4, that will be equals to 20. That will be equals to 10, as you observe. So we do the same procedure up to the last 60 bottle of wine for all beverage that we are provided for Mr. Vijaya. So after doing so, now we need to understand that the total income for Mr. Vijaya was 17 Tanzania shillings. Now, in order she can choose the best bottle that maximizes utility, we start to look at the marginal utility per shillings by comparing the 3 beverage, soda, beer, and wine, to look which will give you the high marginal utility per shillings. So when you take out the first bottle of beer, that is 25, there is no one compared or be greater than 1. So we take 25, that costs Tanzania shillings, that is equal to 2 Tanzania shillings. We take also for the first, we take out the same bottle of 20. That will give you, when we exact from the budget, we get 13 Tanzania shillings. Remain with 13, we take out the second bottle of beer, that will be potential. That will take out the 2 bottles of beer that will correspond to the values of equations. For that case, Mr. Vijaya wishes to maximize utility should buy a total of 1 bottle of soda, 4 bottles of beer, 2 bottles of wine. So the total utility can be found by adding up the total utilities for each purchases, that is utility of soda, utility of beer, and utility of wine. It will give you 10 plus 140 plus 100, which will be equals to 250. 250, as you can observe. Remember that these consumptions, band of 1 bottle of soda and 4 bottles of beer and 2 bottles of wine, has been obtained by taking a very critical comparisons on what kind of utility, what kind of ice utility that is favorable between the 3 beverages, that is the soda, beer, and wine. So after that, now let's find the maximum. To show that this is a maximum, we need to find the marginal utility of in respect of price of the last unit purchase for each beverage. So it will be marginal utility of soda divided by the price of soda, that is 10 divided by 1, which is equal to 1. And we take out the marginal utility of beer divided by the price of beer, which is equal to 20 over 2, that is equal to 1. But also we take the price of wine, that is marginal utility of wine, that is equal to 40 divided by the price of wine, which is equal to 4. That will give you 10. So it will give you exactly marginal utilities between the 3 beverages. So this shows that this is a maximum for the 3 beverages for Mr. Vijaya to maximize for the maximization of utility for his celebration, for his birthday, as you can observe. So they are equal, so it is the utility maximizing maximizing 1 for Mr. Vijaya. Now, after looking so after understanding that, let's go to another concept. Now, let's look at the link between the demand curve and marginal utility. One of the main objectives of this lecture is to derive the demand curve using the concept of marginal utility and the law of diminishing marginal utility. So in order to derive the individual demand curve for commodity X, let us now consider what happens to the consumer equilibrium condition. So when the price of X falls, it must be true that, assuming that the price of Y remains unchanged, we'll obtain the marginal utility of X over price of X is greater than the marginal utility of Y over price of Y. So in order we can derive the individual demand curve for commodity X, we need to consider the checking of equilibrium position. Marginal utility of X over Px is greater than the marginal utility of Y over Py. So the consumer can now increase or utility by consuming more units of X. So this will have the effect of decreasing marginal utility of X because of the hypothesis of diminishing marginal utility. So that is to say that the demand curve slopes downward from the left to the right. So we note the equation can be written as marginal utility of X over marginal utility of Y is equal to price of X over price of Y. From this point now, one can equivalently conclude that the demand curve is identical to a marginal utility curve when expressed in monetary units. So as you can observe, we have derived the marginal utility from the demand curve. Marginal utility when increases, the quantity of output also increases to the same amount. Marginal utility when decreases, the output increases. But also, this is direct proportion to what is from the demand curve, that when the price increases, quantity demanded tend to decrease, and when the price decreases, the quantity of output tend to increase. So this is how the graph showing the derivation from what is known as relationship between the marginal utility curve and demand curve. So the demand curve has been derived from what is known as marginal utility curve, as you can observe. So they show the same effect of increasing and decreasing effects. As the marginal utility increases, the quantity decreases. As the marginal utility decreases, the quantity of output tend to increase. Let's come to another concept about consumer surplus. Consumer surplus, this defines the difference what the consumer would be willing to pay, which is the value of total utility or she derives from consuming commodities, and what he or she actually pays, which is his or her total expenditure on that commodity. For example, suppose the following equation represents a consumer demand curve of beer Q is equal to 80,000 minus 2p, where Q is the number of bottles of beer purchased when the price is per bottle. Find the consumer surplus if the price of beer is 3,000 Tanzania shillings per bottle. So you are provided Tanzania shillings 3,000 Tanzania shillings per bottle as a price, and we have the demand curve that is 8,000 minus 2p. Now required to calculate out the consumer surplus. Now let's go to solution. Solution. Suppose we have the output that is 8,000 minus 2p, and we have the demand function. So when we take out Q, which is equal to 8,000 minus 2, we plug in the output level. We plug in the price level, that is 3,000. So we take out 8,000 minus 600,000 is equal to 200. The price of beer is 3,000 and the quantity of beer is 2,000. So when we sketch out our graph, we sketch out our demand curve, the budget line, and we sketch out the equilibrium level, show the output, the price and output. So here we have the equilibrium price and the output that is equal to 3,000, that is price, and the output level that is equal to 2,000. So the variations, price and new quantities obtained by equating out Q is equal to 8,000 minus 2p. We equate out Q is equal to 0, solve for p. So it will be 0 is equal to 8,000 minus 2p. We equate out negative p, divide by negative 2 both sides. So this will be equals to negative 8,000 divided by negative 2p. This will be equals to p, which is equal to, this will give you 4,000, as you can observe. So our price is equal to 4,000. What about Q? When we get out P is equal to 0, our Q will be equals to 8,000. So our Q will be equals to 8,000, as you can observe, and our price will be equals to 4,000. So let you plug in here our Q, which is equal to 8,000, and the price, which is equal to 4,000. So our area located at the upper side there is a consumer surplus, and the below area is the producer surplus. So for that case now, let's find out. You may go further and work on finding out the consumer surplus. So consumer surplus is a well-known understand how we can obtain it. And we'll watch it on other videos. We could understand on how we solve the consumer surplus, that is half base times 8. So let's come to utility paradox of value. So it's also known as diamond water paradox. Is they describe the difference seen in price the 10 essential goods and non-essential goods. Example, diamond water. So many goods and services that are essential to human life have much lower prices in the market economies than other goods and services that are not essential. So it tends to explain also on how describe the difference seen in the prices of a certain essential goods and non-essential goods. For example, diamond water. Why the price of those what is known as non-essential goods tends to rise upwards than those prices that are not essential. That's its price tend to be very low. So why is water, which is essential to life, has little market value, while diamonds, which are much less important, have higher market value? Why so? Why water is essential, which is essential to life, has little market value, while diamond, which is much less important, have higher market value? The answer is that the supply and demand curve for water intersect at a very low price, while the supply and demand for diamonds, such that as the equilibrium price of diamond is very high. Somebody may ask you, this could be the fact. One could ask, why supply and demand now for water intersect at such a low price? The answer is that the diamonds are very scarce and the cost of getting extra one is very high. So while water is relatively abundant and the cost little in many parts of the world, so actually the law of marginal utility does not tell us things as why diamonds are naturally less abundant in theirs. So why this affects the values imputed in the given diamonds and the price of diamonds in the market. So the concept, let's come to another concept, that is total utility, elasticity, and marginal utilities. Quite often a frequent error occurs when people try to use the knowledge of total utility to predict the elasticity of demand. Why so? It is argued that since goods like diamonds can be given up, that they have high elasticity demand. When the price rises, consumers can stop buying them. Conversely, it is argued that indispensable goods such as food, which are necessity goods, have high elastic demand because whenever prices rises, consumers have no choice but to continue using them. So even the price of essential goods get rise, people continue to use them because they're essential for them. However, now it is important to underscore that the elasticity of demand depends on marginal utilities and not the total utilities. So the relevant question for predicting the response to a price change is how much do the values hold that they are consuming. So when the price of a product rises, each consumer will reduce his or her purchases of that commodity until he or she values the last unit consumed at the price that must be paid for that unit. And for that case, let's come to now to look on some criticism on the cardinality theory. Utility theory is an abstract, subjective concept, and there are three major problems involved in trying to measure it. It is difficult to find an appropriate units of measurement, yet another problem is connected to the interpersonal comparison of utility. Thirdly, to measure the utility derived by an individual in consuming commodities require that all other factors which affect the level of sophistication to be held constant, and it is clearly impossible to carry out such kind of control experiment. So it is very difficult to carry out such kind of a control experiment by assuming other factors keep constant. The idea that utility could be measured in units dates back in the 19th century. It was popularized by economists such as Leon Wallace, Stanley Jevons, and Alfred Marshall. So economists at that particular time believed that utility could similarly be measured in its own units called utiles. So those economists are known as cardinalists because they believe that the cardinal numbers could be measured in utility measurement. So for that case, cardinalists actually stays on their belief that the cardinal numbers could express utility measurements. For example, a consumer may obtain 10 utiles from dancing, but 2 utiles from attending a political rally. So the cardinalists would conclude from this statement that the consumer obtains 5 times utility from dancing as from attending a political rally. So thank you for watching. And I welcome you to DC Economics. Bye bye.